Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to class number, 5 at this point, 6, something like that, for student success. This is going to be on the application of money management. It's going to kind of coincide with the theory that we talked about, I think, 2 weeks ago now. Apologize for the delay in the class situation. Was having some internet issues that are now solved, so I appreciate you guys being patient that way. Just a couple of things to go over before we get launched into your practical kind of aspect of money management. You do have an assignment due this Saturday, 11:59 p.m., as well as discussion format. So make sure that you are putting your stuff up on Populi and responding to the discussion. Another thing that I would like to mention here is that you are required to respond to another student. So please make sure that you're doing so. If in the absence of another classmates commenting, you can respond to my comments if there's some sort of an issue there. If you again have any questions, comments, please do so before Saturday, and I will be happy to answer those for you. So let's launch in. Hopefully you guys all did the budgeting assignment. So realistically, what I wanted to get through with the budgeting assignment is to get you guys to really understand where your spending is, and number 2, where you guys would like your spending to be. I think that it's really interesting and how few people actually do their budgeting on a monthly basis. It's actually incredible to me, the fact that most people don't do that. So if I can just encourage you guys today, again, that's going to be a theme of this class, to encourage you guys today, please just do a budget every month. Figure out where your spending is, because over the long term, that kind of a discipline will really help you make sound financial decisions, for you to be able to sit there and look at something and go, okay, spent a little bit too much here, got to kind of carve that back. Okay, I'm not spending any money on X, Y, or Z. Maybe I should anticipate that spending. It will go a long way for you in your life. And might I suggest that if you ever plan on getting married, that kind of a discipline will be excellent for your future marriage. If you are already married, then I would say, please develop this habit. It will make your whole money situation as a married couple be infinitely better if you can figure this out on the front end. Too many people do this on the back end. So if I can encourage you, that would be my encouragement for today. Actually, there's probably a couple if I'm thinking of it. But the other thing that I find about this assignment that I would really like to hit on here right now is just figuring out where you would like your spending to be. Because a lot of people, what they do is they do kind of a generalized budget. Okay, this is where I spent my money. This is what it kind of looks like on a monthly basis, but they don't know what the ideal is. Okay, well, if in an ideal world, I'd like to be saving $50 a month towards, potential gifts or, whatever it is. So, if you guys can get that down, I think that that's also an important factor to be able to look at, okay, what's an ideal situation look for me? What's an ideal situation look like in this month, in the months to come? Can I predict some sort of expenses? Because a lot of people have struggles, not necessarily with the month to month, but it's those things like, your car broke down, your car needs an oil change every 3 months or whatever it is. And you look at it and you go, okay, well, crud, I didn't think about that. That's an extra X number of dollars. And, that's happened to me recently where I've looked at, I had to take my dog to the vet. And it's like, oh, man, that's like a $200 fee that I just didn't anticipate coming through. It would have been nice to, maybe put some money aside every month instead of having this 250 X, whatever it is, dollars a month to be able to do that. So that's something that I would really encourage with you guys. One of the things that I hope, hopefully this might be convicting to you personally, and hopefully it is. Hopefully this is something that, again, I can encourage you guys in, is a tithe. I saw tithe as very, very, I didn't see almost any tithe on any of the submissions for this particular class. So I want to make sure that I touch on this. I believe that tithing is extremely important. I've mentioned in previous classes that the idea of stewardship, especially with your money, is something that's very important that you get down, again, when you're kind of beginning your financial future. tithing is ultimately, we talked about last week, the love of money and things like that. I think your tithe, realistically, the way that I view my tithe is this. This is a way that every month I can show who is on the throne of my life, right? Is it God or is it money? Well, this check every month says, no, this is my act. This is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a stamp on this and say, this is God's money. I'm going to throw this in the plate. I'm going to do whatever it is, throw it in the tithe bucket. This is not me lording over my money. And so God is just able to take over that. And I think that some amazing things can happen when you begin to get that discipline down. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I won't tell you that I'm perfect, but one of the things for some reason that I can not really explain, I've always been able to tithe. I've tithed every cent since I started making money. And for some reason, I got that down. And to be honest with you, if you can look at my financial situation, God has just extravagantly blessed me in this area. And I believe that the reason for that is because I have proven faithful with the small things that God has given me over the years. And so God has decided to give me more and more responsibility over more and more finances. And so that's going to be a common theme in this class, as you guys see it, is that God rewards good stewardship. And so that would be my encouragement to you guys, is make sure that you're building that discipline. Another thing that I would mention to you all is that just a kind of a personal story about tithing particularly. I started my business in 2017, and I had made a commitment after feeling, the Holy Spirit kind of pressing on me, that I was going to give my first check for the company that I had started to God, and that was going to be my commitment to God, and that's what I was going to do. And so I decided that, first one's going to God, and the first check came and went, and I remember putting it aside, but not actually giving it. So I knew that money was earmarked towards my tithe, but I didn't put the money, I didn't give the money to my local church or to the organizations I support. And so I decided, okay, well, I'm going to keep this earmarked. And I was really struggling with my business, and that's something that I just didn't anticipate initially, was having the amount of time go by without income. And so I was really starting to hurt financially, and I was in a position where I was kind of going, okay, maybe if I don't get a check in the next couple of, a deal in the next couple of weeks, maybe I need to start thinking about, starting applying to jobs and shutting this thing down. And what was interesting was I felt the Holy Spirit really press on me at that point in time and say, well, have you given that check? And it was just a convicting moment for me that I said, oh, crap, I need to do that. And so I took the money, I wrote the check, put it in the mail, and the very next day, I got 2 calls from the 2 largest clients at my business. And both of those clients, those 2 clients combined, they were worth more than 1.5 times the amount just between the 2 of them that I had made the previous year. So just filling those positions for those clients, those contracts that I got, made me more money than I would have in a year and a half at my previous company. And so it was just an amazing moment for me to just be like, man, this was just something that, and I can't promise you, just to give you context, I can't promise you that that's exactly what's going to happen in your situation, because I think that regardless of, your tithe situation and what you're giving and things like that, I think blessing comes in more ways and different ways than we might imagine. It might not be that God says, oh yeah, you gave this tithe, I'm going to, throw you 100, a bunch of money, it might be that God shows you something that you were just not realizing, or, something else happens. But I do believe that when we're faithful with those things, God gives us more. And so I just wanted to give you guys a kind of a quick testimony as far as me for tithing and stuff like that. So that would be my encouragement to you on tithing. The next thing I would say in terms of your budgeting situation that many of you guys may or may not be aware of, but I saw very few of you, if any, actually. I'm trying to think. I don't think any of you guys actually put any money towards any kind of retirement or investment account. So my encouragement, another encouragement for you guys today, would be around the idea of investment over the span of your life. If you guys want to, by all means, go ahead and Google it, but there's plenty of materials out there about how advantageous it is to start investing when you're young. And so if you guys are interested, I'd be more than happy to kind of guide you through that process. You can reach out to me directly. But one thing that I think is, at the very least, if you guys don't have a ton of extra money per month to be able to put towards an investment account, or, starting a Roth IRA, or, if you have a 401k through your work, those are options. But if you don't have those options, one thing that I always encourage to people who I chat with about personal finance is getting what's called an Acorns account. Acorns is a really excellent practical way to start investing, and it's just an app that you get on your phone. I believe it's on Android and iOS, so you can get it either way. And what it essentially does is it says, okay, link your debit card. You don't even need a credit card for it. And so you link your debit card or credit card, and they will round up the change for each transaction that you make and put it into an investment account. And so, if you decide that you're going to make $1.97 purchase, it'll round up those 3 cents and put it towards an investment account that's just kind of earmarked for your future. So, just to give you an example, I put in money every month. And so I think my wife's been doing it for, less than 6 months, if I remember correctly. And she, I think, has $750 already just from rounded up change that she makes. And so what we are going to do with that is make a decision on what that's going to go to. I would imagine it goes to some sort of a vacation in the future, but I have my own separate one for my debit card. She has one for her debit card. And so mine is actually, earmarked for my kids' college tuition. And so whatever I have in that account over the next 20 plus years is going to go straight to my kids' college tuition. And it's a great way. I think I already have $10,000 in there from having it for, I think, 4 or 5 years. And so it's just amazing to watch that kind of a situation grow. And, if you're late teens, early 20s, something like that, the potential by the time you're, 50 or 60 or whatever it is, it has tremendous opportunity to really grow over that time period. So you'd be really surprised at how much compound interest will do over a 40, 50-year span of time. So there is my kind of brief investment, plug for you guys. The other thing that I would just tell you about your finances is just really honestly developing some kind of discipline. And I think where I really developed this was when I was younger. I decided that I was going to read the book of Proverbs a lot, and read through the book of Proverbs when I was younger, and decided that I said, okay, well, a lot of these things, I feel like the Proverbs in general can be really distilled down into really a main idea. I won't say it's the entire main idea of Proverbs or anything like that, but many of the Proverbs in there, if you look at it, they really hit on one particular phrase, one particular theme, and that's that the wise individual will make a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain. And so I found that principle really helps you, across all areas of life, but in your finances particularly. When I was younger, I kind of came to that realization, and to be able to see how that has impacted my financial situation over the years, having that mentality has just been amazing, right? That I've been able to see a lot of financial success just because of my implementation of that one principle, right? That the wise individual will make a short-term sacrifice in order to get a long-term gain. An example of that would be my car, right? That I got a job that was paying pretty good money. I had a cruddy little car that my parents got me for my 18th birthday, which I was very grateful for the fact that they were willing to get me, my first starter car. Not a lot of people get that opportunity. I was very grateful for that. And the thing that I was not so thrilled about was the fact that my car was a 2006 Ford Focus hatchback, and it was almost a purple color. So it's really, the way I would describe it is an excellent car for a 16-year-old girl. And so I kept that car all the way through college, and then got my first, kind of adult job, and continued to keep that car. And then I got a very well-paying job and kept that car because it was still running. It was an excellent running car, and was very grateful to just not have a car payment. And I decided that I was going to keep that into my, well-paying job. And what was interesting is at the job where I was getting paid well, I would honestly get almost daily abuse for the car that I drove. That these individuals that I worked with were really interested in, hey, do you have an Audi? Do you have a Beamer? Do you have a Mercedes? And they were very interested in the kind of car you drove. And so the fact that I had a little hatchback Ford Focus that was perfect for a 16-year-old girl provided them just endless amounts of jokes. And over that time frame, I just decided that, the reality is, even if I'm getting made fun of almost every day for this car, I'm going to make that short-term sacrifice, because at certain points it would have been really easy for me to buy a nicer car that would have made me look cool. And then I decided to say, okay, well, I am going to make this short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain. And if I look at my financial situation as compared to many of the people that I was in business with at that particular time, my financial situation looks a lot better than theirs. I won't say it looks better than all of them, but for the vast majority of them, it looks better than theirs. And it's really funny to kind of see that contrast there, to say, well, yeah, I did drive a really crappy car for a long time, but if you look at the long term, it's worked out for me. And on the other side of things, if you're looking for, a stupid moment, something that I very much kick myself for, probably more than I should, but definitely kick myself for now, is my house, right? That there was this idea of making a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain. Well, in an instance where I wasn't able to do that was my last house. And so the last house I bought was a very large and very, very expensive house. And so what I did was I took a big chunk of money and I said, okay, I'm going to throw it towards this big house. And that particular time in my life, I just kind of gotten off of a rough breakup. And so I would say that my confidence kind of took a little bit of a hit there. And so I said, well, you know what? I really want to make get this big purchase, get this really, really nice house. And, to be honest with you, the idea of that was just like, I kind of want to flex a little bit here. I want to make it look like I'm cool, and around the same time, I had a friend of mine who took about the same money that I put out on this big house, and he put it towards a duplex and another, I think it was, a duplex and a small single-family home, and he decided that he was going to rent those out. And if you chart the timeline, I could have taken the exact same amount of money that I put down on this big house, and if I had instead done what my buddy did and put it down on a duplex and a small single-family home, I would have, if you look at his financial situation, right, I talked to him not too long ago, and he actually ended up selling one of the properties, and he made almost $100,000 in profit off of one of those sales. And so if I talked to him about the other property that he has, the duplex, and that has also appreciated in value over $150,000. So the reality is I, in this situation, lost out on $250,000 because I decided that I wanted to look cool, that I decided that I wanted to flex and make a big statement. And that's, to this day, something that I regret very heavily. And, oh man, it's just one of those things that when I look at that decision that I made, it really is just one of those ones that kind of just tugs at you like, if I had just done something that wasn't that stupid, I could have been in a completely different financial situation. And so if I have any encouragement for you guys today, it would just be that, although it might not look flashy, making a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain is going to turn out well for you in your financial world. And I think anybody will argue that it will also turn out well for you in other areas of life. So there's that. The last thing I wanted to cover with you guys today is going to be the debt conversation. That's kind of a loaded question in Christian circles, especially if you follow Dave Ramsey or any of his, Financial Peace University, things like that. He's very against debt. So I wanted to have this conversation with you because I think it's very important for you to think about, what's my approach to debt as I go through my life? What's my approach to debt as I approach my education, my house, my cars, things like that. And so what I would encourage you guys today in is that consumer debt, there's a difference between consumer debt and other kinds of debt. And consumer debt, I think we can pretty much all argue that consumer debt is going to be a bad route to go, right? You maxing out your credit cards because you want to get some really nice clothes. You maxing out your credit cards because you just eat out way too much. We can all agree that that's a poor financial decision, right? And then that's what I would define as consumer debt. I want to get a big TV. I want to get a big couch or whatever it is, you consuming something that's not going to give you anything back in the long term, right? Whereas debt that's kind of, I would say, motivated towards more of an investment is going to be something that you need to hash out on an individualized basis. I particularly do not have a huge problem with debt. I think that you just need to realize what your current risk, how you handle risk in your life, right? That you need to weigh the pros and cons of a debt situation, right? So if you're taking, for example, your college tuition, you have the opportunity potentially to go into debt for your college education. Well, the question that you should ask yourself in that circumstance is, okay, well, what do I want to do? And how much debt am I realistically going to go into for this particular education? Well, if you have no idea what you want to do and you don't know how much money the degree program that you are going to get into makes when they get out, then I would say you really shouldn't be going into debt. That you shouldn't be going into debt for your education because ultimately you don't know where it's going to take you. You don't know what the end goal is. Now, if you say, well, I'm really interested. A buddy of mine is a good example. He decided that he wanted to become a nurse practitioner, which is kind of a step down from a doctor if you know the medical field at all. And so he decided that he was going to go and do that, and it's very expensive for college. Well, he also what he did was charted out how much he could potentially make at the end of his entire schooling. So he said, okay, well, I might be going into $150,000 worth of debt for, a doctorate is essentially what it is it's an 8-year program. And he said, okay, I'm going to get a doctorate when I get out, and the medical field is very stable, and here's what I can reasonably expect in this area for this price point, and I'm going to, in exchange for that, go into roughly $100,000, let's say $150,000 worth of debt. I don't know what the actual number is, but that's just ballpark. Well, if coming out you're making $100,000 a year plus, which is a very common rate for somebody who's coming out in that amount or in that degree program. Well, okay, if you can make $100,000 to $125,000 coming out of school, and then you are, say, 26 years old or 27 years old at this point, and you can, live a very frugal lifestyle for a couple of years, you could pay that debt off with very, very simple, easy, just an easy situation. So you say, okay, well, I can pay that debt off, and in exchange, I'm going to get this earning potential over time that realistically isn't a field that's not going to go away, even during the coronavirus, right? That nobody really anticipated that happening, and the medical professionals are doing quite well. And so I would encourage you to go through a similar analysis in your life when you're looking at a debt decision, right? Okay, well, I'm going to be getting this house. Is it reasonable for me to be able to sell this house for more than I paid for it? Or am I going to do some work on this house to increase the value and eventually make more money once I decide to pay it off? Or a good example would be, many of you might be making the decision to buy a car. Well, I wouldn't ever advocate for you guys going out and buying a brand new vehicle because that is not a necessary purchase. That would be what I would define as a consumer purchase at that point, right? I want to buy something simply for the fact that it's going to make me look better or cooler or whatever it is, right? That you could buy a $5,000 vehicle and go into very minimal amounts of debt and get just as reliable of a vehicle as you would with a $20,000 purchase. I would be a case in point, right? I bought a $5,000 Toyota Camry that would have ran forever, right? As opposed to making a $20,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 decision for a brand new Audi, right? That there's a difference between those two purchases. One is a necessary purchase that you say, okay, I'm willing to go into debt for this $4,000 or $5,000 vehicle because it gets me from my job to where I'm able to get myself to my friend's house, to my parents' place, or it provides me a little bit more freedom. It's able to get me to my job. Okay, that contrasted with, okay, well, I'm going to buy this $20,000 Mustang or whatever it is, and, just makes me look cool for the ladies, But those are two different purchasing decisions. One is on the consumer side. One is on the side of, okay, this car will help me over the long term and will invest in getting into this car and this debt situation overall is going to be a long-term net gain for me. So that would be my encouragement to you guys in terms of the debt conversation. Hopefully that's helpful for you. I'm going to close this discussion off at this lecture off at this point, just because we're getting a little bit lengthy in terms of the time frame. But this is really honestly, if there's one area of expertise for me, particularly in the realm of this class, this is kind of it for me. So if you guys have a question as far as your personal finance goes, you have questions about future things, decisions you're making currently, whatever it is, I'd be more than happy to help you guys. Reach out to me, phone, email, whatever it is. So I will let you go at this point. Have a good rest of your night, guys.